So you want a lemon tree loaded with fruit, but every attempt so far has given you a handful of tiny, sad lemons, or worse, no lemons at all. That frustration is incredibly common, and it almost always comes down to a few specific mistakes that are easy to fix once you know what they are. In this video, I am walking you through the fastest way to grow a lemon tree that actually produces tons of lemons, whether you are growing in the ground or in a container. We are covering variety selection, soil, sunlight, feeding, pruning, and everything in between. And if you stick around until the end, I have got a bonus technique that commercial citrus growers use to nearly double their fruit set. It is a game changer. Let us get into it. A single productive lemon tree can supply your kitchen year-round and save you a surprising amount of money over time. More than that, there is something deeply satisfying about walking outside and picking a ripe lemon off your own tree. That kind of self-sufficiency is worth learning how to do right. We're going to cover how to choose the best variety for your specific climate, get the soil and container dialed in, nail the watering and feeding schedule, and then prune for maximum fruit production. By the end, you will have a clear plan to get your lemon tree producing faster than you thought possible. First up, picking the right variety. Variety selection is where most people either set themselves up for success or doom themselves to years of waiting. A lemon tree grown from seed can take 7 to 10 years before it produces a single fruit. A grafted tree from a nursery, 2 to 3 years, sometimes even the first year. That difference is enormous. Always buy grafted, never grow from seed if your goal is fruit. Meyer lemons are the go-to for most home growers, and for good reason. They are a cross between a true lemon and a mandarin orange, which makes them slightly sweeter, thinner-skinned, and more cold-tolerant than standard varieties. They also fruit heavily and adapt well to container growing. If you are in zones 8 through 11, a Meyer lemon is almost foolproof outdoors. Eureka and Lisbon are your classic grocery store lemons. Thicker skin, more tart, very productive. Eureka fruits nearly year-round in mild climates and tends to stay a bit more compact. Lisbon handles heat and cold slightly better and produces most of its fruit in winter and spring. Either one performs beautifully in zones 9 through 11. Ponderosa lemon is worth mentioning for anyone who wants massive individual fruits. A single Ponderosa lemon can weigh over 2 pounds. The tree itself stays compact, making it a surprisingly good container choice. The trade-off is fewer fruits per tree, but each one is a showstopper. Containers sorted. Actually, let us talk about containers. The pot you choose affects growth speed more than most people realize. Lemon trees have aggressive root systems that need room to expand, but cramming a young tree into a massive pot creates its own problems. Too much soil around a small root ball stays wet for too long, and citrus roots sitting in soggy soil is a recipe for root rot. Start with a pot that is about 4 inches wider than the nursery container your tree came in. For a typical nursery tree, that usually means a 14 to 16-inch pot to begin with. Upgrade to a larger pot every 2 to 3 years as the root system fills out. This staged approach keeps the soil drying at the right pace while still giving the roots room to grow. Material matters. Terracotta breathes well and helps prevent overwatering, but it dries out fast in hot climates and gets heavy quickly. Plastic retains moisture longer and weighs less, which is a real consideration if you need to move the tree indoors for winter. Fabric grow bags are an underrated option. They air prune the roots naturally, which prevents circling and encourages a denser, more efficient root system. Whichever material you pick, drainage holes are non-negotiable. If the pot does not drain freely, nothing else you do will matter. What goes inside that pot determines how fast your tree grows and how much fruit it produces. Citrus trees demand soil that drains fast, but still holds enough moisture and nutrients to keep the tree fed between waterings. Standard potting mix straight from the bag is too dense for citrus. It holds water too long and compacts over time. suffocating the roots. The fix is simple. Take a high-quality potting mix and blend it with about 25 to 30% perlite or pumice. That ratio gives you the drainage citrus roots need, while keeping enough organic matter to retain moisture and nutrients. Some growers add a handful of composted bark to improve structure even further. The goal is a mix that feels light and fluffy when you squeeze it, not dense or muddy. Planting depth is critical and frequently botched. The graft union, that knobby bump near the base of the trunk, must sit above the soil line. Bury it, and you risk the rootstock sending up its own shoots, which steal energy from the fruiting wood above. 2 to 3 inches of clearance above the soil keeps the graft safe. After planting, water thoroughly until it runs out the drainage holes. That first deep watering settles the soil around the roots and eliminates air pockets. Hold off on fertilizer for the first 2 weeks. Let the roots recover from transplanting before you ask them to process nutrients. Sunlight is the single biggest factor in how many lemons your tree produces. 6 hours of direct sun is the minimum. 8 to 10 hours is where fruit production really takes off. A tree in partial shade will grow leaves just fine, but set very little fruit. Every hour of direct sunlight translates into more energy for flowering and fruiting. Position your container where it catches the most sun and rotate the pot a quarter turn every 2 weeks so all sides develop evenly. Watering citrus in containers is a balancing act. Too little and the leaves curl and drop. Too much and the roots suffocate. The simplest test is sticking your finger 2 inches into the soil. Dry at that depth. Water deeply until it flows from the drainage holes. Still moist? Check again tomorrow. In summer heat, that might mean watering every 2 to 3 days. In winter, once a week or even less. Feeding makes the difference between a tree that survives and a tree that produces armloads of fruit. Citrus trees are heavy feeders, especially during the growing season from spring through early fall. A slow-release citrus fertilizer applied every 6 to 8 weeks provides steady nutrition without the risk of burning the roots. Supplement with a liquid fertilizer high in nitrogen every 2 to 3 weeks during active growth for an extra push. Micronutrients matter just as much as the big 3. Iron, zinc, and manganese deficiencies are common in container citrus and show up as yellowing leaves with green veins. A chelated micronutrient spray applied to the foliage 3 to 4 times per year prevents these deficiencies before they slow your tree down. Healthy dark green leaves are your visual confirmation that the feeding program is working. If this is helping you out, a subscribe would mean a lot. I put out new growing guides every week, back to our lemon tree. Pruning a lemon tree is not about making it look pretty. It is about directing the tree's energy into fruit production instead of wasted wood. The biggest mistake is letting the tree grow tall and leggy. A compact, bushy shape with an open center allows sunlight to reach the interior branches where a lot of your fruit develops. Remove any suckers growing below the graft union immediately. These are rootstock shoots, and they will never produce good fruit. They just drain resources. Any dead, crossing, or inward-growing branches should come out too. After that, focus on shortening overly long branches by about a third. Cutting back to an outward-facing bud encourages the tree to branch laterally rather than shooting straight up. Late winter, just before the spring growth flush, is the ideal pruning window. The tree is semi-dormant, so the stress is minimal, and the new growth that follows will carry that season's flowers. Water sprouts, those vigorous vertical shoots that pop up from major branches, look productive but rarely fruit well. Clip them off. The energy they consume is better spent on the horizontal and angled branches that bear the heaviest crops. Lemon trees are self-pollinating, which means a single tree can produce fruit without a partner. Outdoors, wind and insects handle pollination naturally. Indoors or in a screened porch, you become the pollinator. A small paintbrush or even a cotton swab does the job perfectly. Gently dab the inside of each open flower, moving from bloom to bloom. You are transferring pollen from the stamens to the pistil, within the same flower and between flowers. Do this every couple of days while the tree is in bloom, and your fruit set will improve dramatically. 50 to 70% of flowers dropping without setting fruit is normal for citrus. Do not panic when it happens. The tree is self-thinning to match what it can actually support. Lemons do not ripen off the tree the way bananas or avocados do. Once you pick them, what you have is what you get. Color is the most reliable indicator. A ripe lemon is fully yellow with a slight give when you squeeze it gently. Green patches mean it needs more time. The beauty of lemons is they can hang on the tree for weeks after ripening without losing quality. So there is no rush. For growers in zones 8 and below, winter protection decides whether your tree survives to fruit another year. Move container trees indoors before nighttime temperatures consistently drop below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A bright south-facing window or a simple grow light running 12 to 14 hours per day keeps the tree healthy through winter. Cut back on watering and stop fertilizing entirely from late fall through early spring. The tree slows its metabolism in winter, and pushing it with nutrients causes weak, leggy growth. Leaf drop after moving indoors is common and usually not a crisis. The tree is adjusting to lower light and humidity. Misting the leaves a few times a week or placing the pot on a tray of pebbles with water helps ease the transition. Yellow leaves with green veins point to an iron or micronutrient deficiency. A chelated iron spray corrects this within a couple of weeks. If the yellowing is uniform across the entire leaf, nitrogen is more likely the issue. A dose of liquid fertilizer brings the color back. Leaf curl with no visible pests usually signals inconsistent watering. The roots dried out too much between waterings, or the tree got hit with too much water all at once. Establishing a consistent watering rhythm solves this over time. Sticky residue on the leaves and tiny white or brown bumps on the stems mean scale insects. They are one of the most common citrus pests, especially on indoor trees. Wiping affected areas with a cotton ball dipped in rubbing alcohol removes individual scale. For heavier infestations, horticultural oil spray smothers them effectively. 2 applications about 10 days apart breaks their life cycle. Blossom drop beyond the normal 50 to 70% range often traces back to temperature stress or irregular watering during bloom. Citrus flowers are sensitive to sudden swings. Keeping conditions as stable as possible during flowering protects your fruit set. Root rot shows up as wilting leaves on a tree that has plenty of water. The roots are drowning, not drying. Unpot the tree. Trim away any brown or mushy roots, repot in fresh, well-draining mix, and scale back watering immediately. Commercial citrus growers discovered decades ago that strategic potassium boosting during bloom and fruit, set dramatically, increases the number of fruits that actually make it to maturity. The science is straightforward. Potassium strengthens cell walls in developing fruit, making them more resistant to the natural drop process. Starting about 2 weeks before your tree typically blooms, switch to a fertilizer with a higher potassium ratio. Look for a formula where the third number is the highest, something like a 5:2:6 or similar ratio. Apply it every 2 weeks through the entire bloom and early fruit set period, usually about 6 to 8 weeks total. Growers who adopt this approach consistently report 30 to 50% more fruit reaching full size compared to trees on a standard balanced fertilizer during the same window. Once the fruits are marble-sized and clearly established on the branches, you can switch back to your regular citrus fertilizer for the remainder of the season. The potassium boost only needs to happen during that critical flowering and early fruit development window. It is a small adjustment to your feeding routine that produces a noticeably heavier harvest, and it works whether your tree is in the ground or in a container. That covers everything you need to get your lemon tree producing more fruit faster. If this helped, subscribe and hit the bell so you catch the next guide. Got a lemon tree story or a question I did not cover? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching and happy growing.